and I didn't really put together a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll kind of lay out an overview of what we're going to be trying to accomplish today, and then we'll walk through a quick example, after which I'll open the floor for questions, and you can ask me any questions you can related to this. It might be helpful, I mean, especially if you're in a loud environment, to mute your phones for now, and then you can take them off mute when it's time for the question and answer session. And so today we're talking about global well lists. I'm just going to dive right in. The concept of the global well list kind of came about from this whole thing where we have a situation where you get your well lists in one big group for different areas, but you need to drill by area for different groups. And so what would typically happen in the past was, in this example, we have, I guess, we have 4 areas. So we have wells that flow to area A, wells that flow to area B, and wells that flow to areas C and D. And we have them split out as different groups. Now they come in from the field or the drilling program as one big list. But what would previously have to do in WellSpring previously was have to break this out into 4 different lists so that we can allocate rigs to different areas. And so if I head into the scheduler, I'll kind of go through a little bit more what I'm talking about. So previously we would have, in this case we have a carrying program coming in, and then I have a few wells in this carrying program. These wells have already been drilled, but in various states of either they either need to be fracked or they are just to be brought online. And then I have these 4 programs. Now what's happening with these 4 programs is that they're coming in as one big program I'm getting my list as one big program, and in the list is saying, hey, these are area A wells, these are area B wells, these are area C, and these are area D. And what I'm having to do is, in Excel, I'm having to filter these out and break these out into different pieces, and then put the whole thing together, and then kind of paste 4 different times. I break out my A1 wells, my area A wells, and I paste all of these into area A, and then I go and break out my area B wells and do the same thing, and then do the same thing with area C and area D. And so what ends up happening is the possibility for mistakes and the possibility for errors becomes really, really great, because I could accidentally paste area B wells into area C, and I have to constantly keep rechecking this over and over again. So I would typically do this, and in the past, the way the workflow worked would be, I would do this whole thing, and then I could come under my resources, and I can then specify rig by rig. So this rig 1, for example, I'm saying it's only going to drill area A, and when it gets on drilling area A, it stops. Rig 2 drills area B, rig 3 drills area C, rig 4 area D, and then rig 5 is kind of a floating rig. It does area B between January and June, and then it stops for a little while, and then it goes on and it focuses on area D and then goes back to area B. So when I run this whole thing, if I go ahead and calculate this very quickly, all right, so we're done calculating. I can go look at my Gantt chart, and I can see that rig 1 does specifically focus on area A, rig 2 on area B, 3 on C, 4 on D. Rig 5, like we specified in the well, is focused on area B, and then stops when it's not active, and then comes back, and then goes back to area B, and then when it's done, it goes to area D, which is exactly what we wanted. The problem is, doing this for 4 areas is not very difficult. If you have multiple areas, though, this kind of becomes a pain. So the new workflow is this concept of a single well list. And I'll switch scenarios for a second and go to this single well list. And the way we have this set up is I still have my program set up the same way. I have this carrying program over here. And then I have my areas A, B, C, and D programs. Now, in my area A program, though, for when I go to my well list, I don't have anything in this well list. I just have a blank well list with nothing in it. And up top here, we have this new functionality that we've created called the global well list. And what this does is, and I'm going to copy this out into Excel so that you guys can see this a bit better. So I'm copying this out and pasting this into Excel, and I'll bring this over here so you guys can see it. But what we've done is, in addition to it being a well list, you can now also specify this drilling program in this global well list. So I can say, I can specify which drilling program the wells apply to. So if I get, for example, you know, a drilling schedule that has multiple different facilities that, you know, target, like different wells are targeting different areas, and this is mostly used for areas, but different wells are targeting different areas, I can actually just create one drilling schedule and have this thing so that in here I have my area A, B, C, and D programs, and it's exactly like my previous other program. I'm still specifying, you know, the well names, specifying count. I'm not specifying template because that's done at the project at the program level, but I can specify my template here if I wanted to, and I can specify working interest, NRI, and what they flow to, and all that. And so when I come here, when I come back and I run this program the same way, I'll see that I get the exact same thing. If I go look at my Gantt chart, which is my rigs are set up in the same exact way, so they target individual facilities, and then the fifth rig targets B and then goes to target D. So when I look at my Gantt chart the same way, I see that I have the exact same thing. I have you know, rig 1 targeting area A all the way down to D, and then rig 5 targeting B and then going to D. And then going to D when it's done with area B. And the beautiful thing about this is now I just have one big well list that I can manage. The possibility for errors is a whole lot less, and this gives me the same exact results as the previous one would, without me having to like go into Excel and, you know, split my well list and then copy and paste 4 different times. So I can go look at I can look at my graphs, and I can see that, you know, I have, you know, this same, let me make this an area graph. I have this same area graph both for this single well list scenario and the base scenario. I get the same exact thing with very little work, with very little work done, there. And I mean, I can look at reports and I can see the same thing, that, you know, I have you know, the same exact results both for this base scenario and this single well list scenario. And then the other thing I can do, which most of you are already doing a little bit of, is I'm going to go back to graphs and talk just a little bit about grouping. So right now, the only user data functionality I have in my well list is the area. So I can go in here and say, hey, click on report groups, and I can add a project grouping, and I'm just going to do a simple grouping by area. So I add a project grouping, and I'm just going to call this area. I then say, hey, this is the asset filter is wells. So I'm grouping, I'm filtering by wells, and then I'm going to group these by area, if I can find area. Can't seem to find it. Guess I'm going to group by field. Oh, there we go. Area is all the way at the bottom. All right. So if I update this, I can get off this tab for a second to refresh it and come back here. And I can then look at a grouped gas graph. And then I can look at this by area. Is that not working? My area filter doesn't seem to be working. Give me. I'm going to go back to here really quickly and make sure I have my area field checked in my well list. There we go. I don't have my area field selected in my well list, so I'm going to select this as area and then run this whole thing again and make sure that I have this working. So if I go back to my graphs, I can look at this and I can see this by area. So I have area A, area B, and then area CD as one area. And so this, I mean, I can do this for multiple things. I can do this for any sort of user data I want. And so this whole thing is just a simple way to be able to look at you know, to be able to put my well list and have one simple well list copy and paste functionality, as opposed to having multiple groupings for as opposed to having multiple groupings and having to copy and paste multiple times to get my data in and out of WellSpring. I can just have one big grouping and look at my data that way. And so I think that pretty much covers the single well list. I'm happy to throw it open for questions, any questions anybody might have at this point.